The alarm screamed through the bridge of the starship Unity as Commander Wu Jin stared at the impossible readings on his screen. For 4,000 years, the quarantine zone around the Sol system had been completely sealed. No ship could enter. No signals could escape. The ancient barriers had been as solid as a wall of pure energy. Now they were failing. "Commander, the energy field is down to 60%, reported Yunsu from her communication station. Her blue tentacles moved nervously over the controls as she monitored the readings. "I'm picking up signals from inside the zone. Lots of them." Wu Jin felt his stomach twist. Every species in the galaxy knew the stories about Sol. The forbidden system. The place where the devourers lived. Ancient records spoke of humans as star killers who consumed entire worlds. The stories said they could steal the life force from other beings just by touching them. "What kind of signals?" he asked. "Radio waves? Quantum transmissions. Even some forms of communication I don't recognize." Yunsu's voice was shaky. "Commander, these signals are organized, complex, whatever is in there. It's still alive." Dr. Boram looked up from her research station. Her 6 eyes blinked in sequence as she processed the data. According to galactic records, the Sol system should have been dead for millennia. No civilization can survive total isolation for that long. It's impossible. Captain Hyunwoo stood beside Wu Jin, his scaled hands clasped behind his back. The council was very clear. "We observe only, no direct contact unless they make first contact with us." The Unity was part of a small fleet sent to investigate the failing barriers. 5 ships from different species, all volunteers. Nobody wanted this assignment. The stories about humans were too frightening. But someone had to find out what was happening. "Sir," Yunsu called out, "I'm getting clearer signals now. They're trying to talk to us." "What?" Wu Jin moved to her station quickly. "The signals are in multiple languages. Galactic Standard, Crystalline Binary, even Ancient Architect script. They're saying—" She paused, checking her translation programs. "They're saying welcome." A chill ran down Wu Jin's spine. How could they know about Galactic Standard? How could they know about languages from species they had never met? "On screen," he ordered. The main display flickered to life, showing the Sol system for the first time in 4,000 years. What they saw made everyone on the bridge go silent. The system was not dead. It was very much alive. Massive structures surrounded the star called Sol. Metal rings and platforms formed a partial sphere around the burning ball of gas. Ships moved between the structures like tiny insects. "The third planet from the star glowed with the lights of cities by the void," whispered Boram. "They built a Dyson swarm. A partial one, but still, this technology shouldn't exist." "Commander," Yunsu said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm receiving a direct transmission, audio and visual." "Put it through." The screen changed to show a face. It was clearly human. 2 eyes, 1 nose, 1 mouth, pale skin. But there was something about the eyes that made Wu Jin uncomfortable. They seemed too bright, too knowing. "Greetings, visitors," the human said in perfect Galactic Standard. "I am Taemin, Chief Ambassador of Earth. We have been waiting for you." Hyunwoo stepped forward. "Ambassador Taemin, I am Captain Hyunwoo of the Galactic Council Exploration Fleet. We came to investigate the failing barrier around your system." Taemin smiled. It was a warm smile, but somehow it made Wu Jin even more nervous. "The barrier was always meant to fail eventually. We have much to discuss. Would you accept an invitation to visit Earth? That is—" Hyunwoo looked around the bridge uncertainly. "We mean no harm," Taemin continued. "We know the stories your people tell about us. Most of them are not true. Some of them, well, we can explain everything when you arrive." Boram moved closer to the screen. "Ambassador, our records show that human civilization should have collapsed thousands of years ago. How did you survive the isolation?" "We learned to work together," Taemin replied simply. "We learned to share everything, knowledge, resources, even our thoughts when necessary. We became better than we were." The way he said it made Wu Jin's skin crawl. There was something wrong with the words, but he couldn't figure out what. "We will consider your invitation," Hyunwoo said carefully. "Of course. Take all the time you need. We have waited this long. We can wait a little longer." Taemin's smile never changed. "But Captain, you should know. The barrier isn't failing by accident. We're bringing it down." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in total silence. "They're bringing it down," Yunsu whispered. "But why?" Wu Jin stared at the screen showing the Sol system. Something was very wrong here. The humans seemed friendly, even helpful, but every instinct he had was screaming danger. "Boram, what do your historical records actually say about humans?" he asked. The scientist's eyes flickered as she accessed her databanks. "The records are fragmentary. Most are from the time before the Galactic Council was formed. They speak of a species that could adapt to any environment, learn any skill, integrate with any other life form. The records call them the Shapers and those who make others more than they were." "That doesn't sound so terrible," Hyunwoo said. "No," Boram agreed slowly. "It doesn't. But there's one more thing. Every record from that time period ends the same way. The species that had contact with humans, they all changed. And according to the fragments, they all said the same thing at the end." "What did they say?" Boram's voice was very quiet. "They thanked the humans for making them better." Wu Jin felt cold suddenly. What happened to those species? They vanished from the records. All of them. As if they simply stopped being what they used to be. The bridge was silent again. Outside the viewports, the Sol system continued its strange dance of lights and metal structures. Somewhere in there, humans were waiting. Humans who had survived 4,000 years of total isolation. Humans who had built impossible technology. Humans who knew languages they should never have learned. "Commander," Yunsu said softly. "What do we do?" Wu Jin looked at the readings from the Sol system one more time. Every piece of scientific training told him that what they were seeing was impossible. But it was happening anyway. "We accept their invitation," he said finally, "but we stay alert. And we remember, the galaxy locked these people away for a reason. We're about to find out what that reason was." As the Unity changed course toward Earth, Wu Jin couldn't shake the feeling that they were flying toward something that would change everything. The barrier around Sol hadn't failed by accident. The humans had brought it down on purpose. The question was, what did they want with the rest of the galaxy? The shuttle bay of Earth's orbital station was unlike anything Wu Jin had ever seen. The walls seemed to flow like water, but when he touched them, they felt solid as metal. Lights appeared wherever they were needed, following the visitors as they walked. The air smelled of flowers and rain even though they were in space. "Welcome to Luna Station," said So Young, their human guide. She was small, with dark hair and eyes that seemed to sparkle with inner light. "This is one of our newer constructions. Only about 800 years old. 800 years old, and they called it new." Wu Jin exchanged glances with Captain Hyunwoo. "The materials you used," Dr. Boram said, running her scanning device over the walls. "I can't identify them. They appear to be both organic and metallic at the same time." So Young smiled. "We learned to work with matter at the quantum level. Once you understand that everything is just energy in different patterns, you can reshape it however you need." She said it like it was the simplest thing in the world. But Boram's scanner was showing impossible readings, matter that changed its properties based on need, technology that seemed almost alive. "How long did it take your people to develop this?" Hyunwoo asked. "Oh, not long," So Young replied. "Maybe 2,000 years? We had a lot of time to experiment during the isolation. 2,000 years to develop technology that was beyond anything the Galactic Council had ever seen." Wu Jin was starting to understand why the ancients had been so afraid of humans. They walked through corridors filled with artwork that seemed to move and change as they watched. Gardens grew in impossible spirals up the walls. Children played games that involved floating balls of light that responded to their thoughts. "Your population," Yunsu said, looking around at all the people they passed. "How many humans are there now?" "About 12 billion on Earth itself," So Young answered. "Another 8 billion in the orbital habitats and asteroid colonies. We've been careful about population growth. Too many people too quickly can cause problems. 20 billion people in one system. Most species never reached more than a few million individuals across multiple worlds." "And everyone gets along?" Hyunwoo asked. "No wars? No conflicts?" So Young looked confused by the question. "Why would we fight each other? We're all working toward the same goals. We share the same understanding." There was something about the way she said "same understanding" that made Wu Jin uncomfortable. But before he could ask about it, they arrived at their destination. The meeting room was enormous, with a ceiling that showed the stars beyond the station. Around a table that seemed to be made of crystallized starlight sat a dozen humans. They all looked different. Different ages, different skin colors, different features. But they all had the same bright, knowing look in their eyes. "Please sit," said Taiman, rising from his chair at the head of the table. "We have so much to discuss." As the galactic delegation took their seats, Wu Jin noticed something strange. The humans weren't talking to each other, but they seemed to be communicating anyway. Sometimes one would start to speak, and another would finish their sentence. Sometimes they would all nod at the same time as if responding to something unheard. "First," said a human woman named Myung, "you must have questions about our history, about how we survived the isolation?" "We do," Boram said carefully. "Our records from before the quarantine are unclear. What exactly happened 4,000 years ago?" The humans looked at each other for a moment. Then Taemin spoke. "There was a misunderstanding. The other species in the galaxy at that time feared us because of our abilities. They thought we would conquer them or destroy them." "What abilities?" Wu Jin asked. Instead of answering with words, a human man named Jae Sung stood up and walked to the wall. He placed his hand against it and the wall became transparent, showing the space outside. Then he moved his hand and the view changed, showing Earth far below. Then the view zoomed in, showing cities and forests and oceans in perfect detail. "We learned to connect with technology," Jae Sung explained, "to make it part of ourselves. The barriers between mind and machine became flexible." Yunsu was staring at the wall display. "That's impossible. You'd need quantum processors directly connected to neural tissue. The rejection rate alone would kill 90% of subjects." "Not if you approach it correctly," said So-young. "Not if you change gradually, carefully. Not if you work together." She placed her hand on the table and suddenly Yunsu's communication device activated. Data flowed across its screen. Data about Yunsu's own species, her homeworld, her family. Information that should have been impossible for humans to access. "How are you doing that?" Yunsu whispered. "Information wants to be shared," So-young said gently. "We simply learned to listen to what it wanted to tell us." Hyunwoo leaned forward. "The quarantine. Why did you accept it? If you could do things like this, you could have fought back." The humans were quiet for a long moment. Then an elderly man named Dongwoo spoke. His voice was soft, but there was something ancient and sad in it. "We accepted it because we realized what we were becoming. Every species we met, we didn't just learn from them. We absorbed their knowledge, their culture, their ways of thinking, and we gave them ours in return. Soon, they weren't quite the same species anymore, and neither were we." "That sounds like cultural exchange," Boram said. "That happens naturally when species meet." "No," Dongwoo said quietly. "This was different. We didn't just exchange cultures. We merged them. The boundaries between self and other became unclear. When we touched their minds, we understood them completely, and they understood us. After a while, there was no meaningful difference between human and non-human in our shared spaces." Wu Jin felt a chill run down his spine. "What happened to those other species?" "They became part of us," Myung said simply. "And we became part of them. They were still themselves, but they were also more than they had been before. Stronger, smarter, more connected to the universe around them." "They were grateful," added another human, a young woman named Ye Jin. "They thanked us for showing them what they could become." The way she said it made Wu Jin's blood run cold. He remembered Boram's words from the ship. Every record ended the same way. The contacted species thanked the humans for making them better. "Where are they now?" he asked. "These species you merged with?" The humans looked at each other again. That strange, silent communication passed between them. "They're still here," Taemin said finally. "Part of what we are now. We carry their memories, their dreams, their unique ways of seeing the universe. They live on in us." Hyunwoo stood up suddenly. "We need to return to our ship. To report back to the council." "Of course," Taemin said, still smiling that warm, terrible smile. "But Captain, before you go, let me show you one more thing." He walked to the center of the room and closed his eyes. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the air around him began to shimmer. Colors appeared that had no names, patterns that hurt to look at directly. And in those patterns, Wu Jin saw faces. Thousands of faces from dozens of different species, all of them smiling, all of them grateful. "They're not gone," Taemin whispered. "They're part of something larger now. Something wonderful." The vision faded, leaving the delegation staring at empty air. "Think about what you've seen here today," Taemin continued. "Think about what we could offer your species, what we could help you become." As they were escorted back to their shuttle, Wu Jin couldn't stop thinking about those faces in the vision. They had looked happy, fulfilled, like they had found something they had always been searching for. That terrified him more than any weapon ever could. 3 days after returning to the Unity, Dr. Boram made a discovery that changed everything. She had been working non-stop, analyzing the data they had collected from Earth. Her 6 eyes were bloodshot from staring at screens, but she couldn't stop. Something about the humans wasn't adding up. "Commander," she called out as Wu Jin entered her lab. "You need to see this." The main display showed a timeline of human civilization, but unlike any other species' history, this timeline had no gaps, no dark ages, no periods of lost knowledge or technological regression. "Look at this." Boram pointed to different sections of the timeline. "Every other species in the galaxy has periods where they lose technology, forget things, have to rediscover what their ancestors knew. It's natural. Civilizations rise and fall, but humans never forgot anything." Wu Jin finished, staring at the continuous line of progress. "Exactly. Their knowledge has been building steadily for over 10,000 years. No interruptions, no setbacks. It's like they have perfect memory as a species." Yunsu looked up from her own station. "Commander, I've been analyzing their communication patterns. The humans aren't just talking to each other through normal channels. There's something else in their network, something vast." "What kind of something?" "I don't know, but it responds to queries from multiple locations at once. It's like they have access to a shared consciousness that exists in their quantum networks." Captain Hyunwoo entered the lab, his scaled face showing concern. "We've received new orders from the Council. They want us to stay longer, gather more information. Apparently, some very old records have been found in the archives." Boram's eyes flickered with interest. "What kind of records?" "Pre-Council archives. From the architects." The name sent a chill through the room. The architects were the mysterious species that had ruled the galaxy before the Council was formed. They had vanished suddenly, leaving behind only ruins and fragmentary records. Most scientists believed they had destroyed themselves through some kind of civil war. "What do the records say?" Wu Jin asked. Hyunwoo activated his personal display. Ancient text appeared, along with a translation. "Project Genesis, the creation of the perfect galactic species, designed for adaptation, integration, and benevolent expansion." Boram's 6 eyes went wide. "They're talking about humans, aren't they?" "The records are incomplete, but yes. It appears the architects didn't evolve humans naturally. They created them as a tool." "A tool for what?" "For bringing order to the galaxy, for ending the conflicts between species, for creating unity." Wu Jin felt his stomach drop. "Unity through absorption. The records talk about guided evolution and voluntary integration," Hyunwoo continued reading. "Humans were designed to be irresistibly appealing to other species, not through force but through understanding. They would learn everything about a species, then show them how to become better versions of themselves. And the species would choose to change. According to this, they would beg to change." Yunsu looked up from her screens. "Commander, I'm getting a communication request from Earth. It's Ambassador Taemin." "Put him through." Taemin's face appeared on the main screen. His smile was as warm as ever, but now it seemed sinister. "Good morning, friends. I hope you're settling in well. I wanted to invite you back to Earth. There's something we'd like to show you." "What kind of something?" Wu Jin asked carefully. "Our archives. The complete history of humanity. We think it's time you learned the truth about who we are and what we were meant to do." The transmission ended before anyone could respond. "They know," Boram whispered. "They know we found the architect records." "How could they know?" Hyunwoo asked. Yunsu's voice was shaking. "Commander, I've been monitoring their quantum communications. Every time we access our computers, every time we run a scan, there's a brief quantum echo. I think they've been watching our data streams." "That's impossible. Our systems are completely isolated. Not from quantum effects. If they can manipulate matter at the quantum level like they showed us, they might be able to read quantum states directly." Wu Jin stared at the screen where Taemin had been. The humans weren't just advanced. They were reading his crew's thoughts, monitoring their discoveries, staying one step ahead of everything. "We go to Earth," he decided. "But we go prepared. Boram, I want you to create a quantum isolation field around our personal data cores. Yunsu, set up a secure communication beacon back to the council. If something happens to us, they need to know what we learned. 2 hours later, they were back on Earth's surface. The shuttle landed in a garden that seemed to extend for miles in every direction. Trees from dozens of different worlds grew together in impossible harmony. Flowers that should have been deadly to each other shared the same soil. "Welcome back," said So Young, greeting them with that same bright smile. "The others are waiting in the deep archives." She led them to a building that looked ancient but not human ancient. The architecture was wrong for human design. Too tall, too angular, with decorations that hurt to look at directly. "This is architect construction," Boram breathed. "Yes," So Young confirmed. "One of the few buildings that survived their departure. We've maintained it as a museum of sorts." Inside, the walls were covered with murals depicting the history of the galaxy. Species after species, rising and falling, fighting and dying. And in the center of it all, a small blue world waiting patiently. "The architects watched the galaxy tear itself apart for millions of years," said a new voice. An elderly human woman named Heywan emerged from the shadows. "War after war, species driving each other to extinction. They decided to create a solution." "Humans," Wu Jin said. "Us," Heywan confirmed. "But we weren't just created to be weapons or conquerors. We were created to be healers, to help species become the best versions of themselves." She gestured to a mural showing humans working alongside various alien species. In the picture, everyone looked happy, fulfilled. "The process isn't forced," Heywan continued. "We simply show other species what they could become, better, stronger, more connected to the universe around them. Most choose to embrace the change." "What about those who don't choose?" Yunwu asked. Heywan's expression became sad. "We leave them alone. That's why we accepted the quarantine. We realized that some species weren't ready for what we could offer, so we waited." "Waited for what?" "For the galaxy to be ready. For species to evolve enough on their own that they could understand the gift we wanted to share." Boram stepped closer to the murals. "These pictures show dozens of species I don't recognize. What happened to them?" "They became part of us," So Young said simply. "Their knowledge, their culture, their unique perspectives, all preserved and enhanced within the human collective. You absorbed them. We integrated with them. They're still here, still themselves, but also part of something larger, something wonderful." Heywan walked to the center of the room and placed her hand on a crystal pillar. The pillar began to glow, and suddenly the room filled with voices. Hundreds of voices, all speaking at once, but somehow it wasn't chaos. It was harmony. "Listen," Heywan whispered. "They're all still here. Still themselves, but also part of the greater whole." Wu Jin listened, and for a moment he could almost understand what the voices were saying. They were speaking of joy, of belonging, of finally finding their true purpose. It was beautiful. It was also terrifying. "The quarantine is ending," Taman said, entering the room with several other humans. "The barriers will be completely down within the year, and then we can begin sharing our gift with the galaxy again." "What if the galaxy doesn't want your gift?" Wu Jin asked. Taman's smile never wavered. "They will. Once they understand what we're offering, they'll want it more than anything else in the universe." As they left the archive building, Wu Jin couldn't get the sound of those voices out of his head. They had sounded so happy, so grateful. But they weren't individual anymore. They were part of something else. The question that haunted him was simple. If becoming part of the human collective made being so happy, why did the thought of it terrify him so much? Back aboard the Unity, the crew was divided. Half of them wanted to flee immediately and warn the galaxy about what they had discovered. The other half were beginning to wonder if the humans might actually be offering something good. "Think about it logically," said Lieutenant Kangde, the ship's science officer. "Every species they've integrated with has become happier, more advanced, more fulfilled. Maybe this isn't conquest. Maybe it's evolution." "Evolution doesn't work that way," Dr. Boram argued. "Evolution is slow, natural, based on environmental pressure. This is artificial transformation. Commander Wu Jin sat in his ready room, staring at reports from his crew. Each report painted a different picture of what they had seen on Earth. Some focused on the impossible technology and the suspicious behavior of the humans. Others noted the genuine warmth of their hosts and the obvious contentment of human society. A chime at his door interrupted his thoughts. Enter. Captain Hyunwoo came in carrying a datapad. His usually calm expression showed deep concern. Commander, we've received a priority transmission from the Council. Several other systems near the quarantine zone are reporting strange phenomena. What kind of phenomena? Ships appearing at the edge of their systems. Human ships. They're not threatening anyone, just watching, waiting. Wu Jin felt a chill. How many systems? 17 so far. All of them have received the same message. Greetings from Earth, we would like to talk. They're already expanding, it appears so. But Commander, that's not the worst part. 3 of those systems have agreed to meet with the humans. Before Wu Jin could respond, Yunsu's voice came over the communication system. Commander, we're receiving another transmission from Earth. Ambassador Taemin is requesting permission to come aboard our ship. Absolutely not, Wu Jin said immediately. Sir, he says he has something important to show us. Something about the choice we're going to have to make. Wu Jin and Hyunwoo exchanged glances. The humans always seemed to know what their visitors were thinking. Beam the transmission to the main conference room, Wu Jin decided. We'll hear what he has to say. In the conference room, the main screen showed Taemin standing in what appeared to be a garden on Earth. But there was someone else with him, a being that Wu Jin didn't recognize at first. Commander Wu Jin, Taemin said warmly, I'd like you to meet Sun-hee. She used to be 2 people. The being called Sun-hee stepped forward. She looked mostly human, but there were subtle differences. Her skin had a slight metallic sheen, and her eyes contained depths that seemed impossible. When she spoke, her voice contained harmonics that suggested multiple vocal cords. Greetings, Sun-hee said. I was once a human named Sun-hee and a crystalline being called Veltar. We chose to become one person 300 years ago. Dr. Boram leaned forward. That's impossible. Humans and crystallines are completely incompatible biologically. Biologically, yes, Sun-hee agreed, but consciousness is more flexible than biology. We merged our minds first, then gradually adapted our physical forms to accommodate both natures. Why? Yunsu asked. Sun-hee smiled, and her expression contained both human warmth and crystalline wisdom. Because together we are more than we ever were apart. Veltar's mathematical perception combined with Sun-hee's emotional intuition created something new. Something wonderful. Are you still individuals? Wu Jin asked carefully. I am still Sun-hee, she replied. I am still Veltar, but I am also something new. I remember being 2 people, but I cannot imagine being only one anymore. Taemin stepped closer to the camera. Commander, your galaxy is facing a choice. The same choice the architects faced millions of years ago when they created us. What choice? Whether to remain separate and isolated, fighting endless wars and struggling alone with the mysteries of existence. Or whether to join together, to share knowledge and experience and consciousness, to become something greater than the sum of your parts. The transmission shifted to show a view of space around Earth. Dozens of ships were visible, some clearly human, others of designs Wu Jin didn't recognize. These ships belonged to species that chose integration centuries ago, Taemin explained. They maintain their own cultures, their own identity, but they also share in the greater understanding that comes from connection. Connection, Hyunwoo repeated. You mean absorption? I mean joining, Taemin corrected. No one is forced. No one is changed against their will. We simply offer the possibility, and beings choose for themselves. What about those who refuse? They remain unchanged. We don't force the gift on anyone. Sun-hee stepped forward again. But Commander, once you experience true connection, once you feel the joy of shared consciousness, the expansion of understanding that comes from multiple perspectives, it becomes difficult to imagine choosing isolation. The transmission ended, leaving the conference room in silence. Well, said Boram finally, that was either the most beautiful thing I've ever seen or the most terrifying. It could be both, Yunsu said quietly. Over the next few days, reports continued to arrive from across the galaxy. The humans were spreading quickly, but they weren't conquering. They were talking, offering, demonstrating, and species were choosing to join them. The water dwellers of Aqua Prime were the first. After meeting with human ambassadors for just 1 week, their entire government voted to begin integration procedures. They said they had never felt so understood, so welcomed. The metal shapers of Ferris followed soon after. Then the gas bag creatures of the Whirlwind Nebula. One by one, species were choosing to become part of the growing human collective. "It's happening too fast," Boram said during one of their daily briefings. "This can't be natural choice. They must be using some form of influence." "Maybe," Wu Jin agreed. "Or maybe what they're offering really is that appealing." "Sir," Yinsu interrupted, "we're receiving an emergency transmission from the Council." The screen showed Council Leader Mixa, her ancient features twisted with fear. "Commander Wu Jin, you must return immediately. The humans have requested an audience with the full Council. They claim they have something to offer us." "What kind of something?" "They say they can end war, end suffering, end the isolation that keeps species apart. They want to offer the same integration to every species in the galaxy." And the Council's response: "We are divided. Some believe this could be the answer to problems we've struggled with for millennia. Others believe it's the end of diversity, the death of individual species." The transmission paused. Then Mixa leaned closer to the camera. "Commander, I need to know. In your opinion, are the humans a threat?" Wu Jin thought about everything he had seen. The happy faces in Taiman's vision, the contentment of the integrated beings, the impossible technology and the perfect harmony of human society. "Council Leader, I don't think they're a threat in any way we understand the word, but I think there's something much more dangerous. They're an answer. And if they're right, if integration really is better than separation, then every species in the galaxy is going to want what they're offering. Even if it means ceasing to exist as separate species, especially then." After the transmission ended, Wu Jin sat alone in his ready room, thinking about the choice facing the galaxy. The humans claimed they were offering freedom, the freedom to become more than any species could be alone. But was it really freedom if the choice was between transformation and being left behind? Outside his viewport, Earth continued its ancient dance around its star. Soon the quarantine would be completely down, and then the galaxy would have to decide: evolution or extinction, connection or isolation, becoming human or remaining themselves. The most terrifying part was that Wu Jin was beginning to think the humans might be right. 6 months later, Commander Wu Jin stood in the Great Assembly Hall of the Galactic Council, watching the most important debate in galactic history unfold. Representatives from 847 species filled the massive chamber, their voices raised in heated discussion. At the center of it all stood Taimin, as calm and smiling as ever. Beside him were other humans, and beside them were beings that had once been other species but now looked different, enhanced, evolved. "The choice is simple," Taimin was saying to the assembly. "You can continue as you are, separate, isolated, struggling with problems that have plagued your species for millennia. Or you can join us and become something greater. What you're proposing is the end of diversity," shouted Representative Zix from the Silicon-based collective. "You want to make everyone the same." "Not the same," corrected Arium, stepping forward. She had once been purely crystalline, but now she was something new, part crystal, part human, part something else entirely. "We become more diverse, not less. I carry within me the mathematical perfection of the crystalline mind and the emotional depth of human consciousness. I am not less than I was, I am more." "You are an abomination," hissed Speaker Vorth of the warrior caste. "A violation of the natural order." Arum's response was to sing, a sound that contained both the pure tones of crystalline resonance and the complex harmonies of human music. The song told the story of two minds finding each other across the void of space, of loneliness ending, of understanding blooming like a flower in darkness. When the song ended, many representatives were wiping away tears with whatever appendages they used for the purpose. "This is manipulation," Speaker Vorth declared. "They use emotional influence to cloud our judgment." "Is truth manipulation?" asked Doyan, the newest human ambassador. She was young, barely past adolescence, but her eyes held the wisdom of ages. "We don't force understanding. We simply offer it." Council Leader Mixa called for order. "The humans have made their proposal clear. They offer integration, the joining of consciousness and capabilities across species lines. They claim this will end war, suffering, and isolation. But the cost? There is no cost, Taman interrupted gently. Only choice. The cost is identity, Mixa continued. The cost is becoming something other than what we are. You become what you were always meant to be, said Kyung-soo, stepping forward from the human delegation. He was the youngest human representative, but when he spoke, his voice carried absolute certainty. Every species in this galaxy is struggling with the same problems. Limited lifespans, imperfect communication, isolation from the greater cosmos. We offer solutions. What you offer is assimilation, declared Ambassador Kith of the hive mind species. We know what that is. We practice it ourselves. But we do not pretend it preserves individuality. Your hive mind absorbs individuals and makes them part of the collective. Kyung-soo replied. Our way is different. We enhance individuals and connect them to the collective. The self is not lost, it is amplified. Dr. Boram, representing the scientific community, stood to address the assembly. I have studied the human integration process extensively. What they offer is real. Beings who undergo integration show increased intelligence, expanded sensory capabilities, enhanced emotional range, and extended lifespans. But they also show decreased individuality and increased conformity to human values. Is conformity to peace and understanding such a terrible thing? Asked Taman. It is if it comes at the cost of free will, Boram replied. But it doesn't, said Sunhee, the human crystalline hybrid. I chose this path freely. Every day I continue to choose it. I could separate back into my component selves if I wished, though I cannot imagine why I would want to. Because you've been changed, Speaker Vorth accused. Your mind has been altered to prefer the collective state. My mind has been expanded to understand the collective state, Sunhee corrected. There is a difference. The debate continued for hours. Some species demanded immediate action to stop human expansion. Others begged for the chance to experience integration themselves. Most sat in confused silence, torn between fear and desire. Finally, Council Leader Mixa called for a decision. We cannot force any species to accept or reject the human offer, but we can establish protocols. The Council proposes the creation of integration zones, designated systems where species can interact with humans and choose integration if they wish. These zones will be clearly marked and voluntary. And outside these zones? Asked Representative Klex of the isolationist faction. Outside these zones, human expansion will be restricted. Species that do not wish contact will be left alone. Taman nodded slowly. We accept these terms. We have always said that the choice must be free. The vote was close. 423 in favor, 424 against. It came down to a single species. The ancient turtle-like beings of Shellworld. Elder Korvash, who had been silent throughout the debate, slowly rose to speak. My people have watched this galaxy for 10,000 years. We have seen empires rise and fall, species bloom and fade. The humans offer something we have never seen before, true unity without conquest, growth without destruction. He paused, his ancient eyes looking around the chamber. But they also offer the end of what we have been in favor of what we might become. This is not an easy choice. The chamber held its breath. Shellworld votes in favor. The integration zones were established within a year. 12 systems, clearly marked and heavily monitored. Species that wanted to experience human integration could go there freely. Those who didn't could avoid the zones entirely. Wu Jin found himself assigned to monitor Station Harmony, the first and largest of the integration zones. He watched as representatives from dozens of species arrived, curious and afraid in equal measure. The first integration ceremony he witnessed was between a human named Minho and a gas-dwelling creature called Whisper of Wind. The process took 3 days and was unlike anything he had ever seen. Not a conquest or absorption, but a genuine merging of consciousness and capability. When it was over, the being that emerged was still recognizably both human and gas-dweller, but also something new. It could exist in both atmosphere and vacuum, think with both human logic and wind pattern intuition. And when it spoke, its voice carried joy that seemed to light up the room. I remember being two, it said. Now I cannot imagine being only one. Over the months that followed, Wu Jin watched as more and more species chose integration. Not all of them, Many came to observe and left unchanged. But those who stayed, who chose to join the growing collective, all seemed to find something they had been searching for their entire lives. The galaxy was changing. Not through conquest or force, but through choice. The humans had kept their word, no one was forced to change. But as word spread of the joy and fulfillment that integration brought, fewer and fewer species chose to remain separate. Standing on the observation deck of Station Harmony, watching ships arrive carrying beings who were tired of being alone in the universe, Wu Jin realized something that should have terrified him but somehow didn't. The humans were winning. Not through war or manipulation, but by offering something the galaxy desperately wanted. An end to isolation. An end to the struggle of facing the cosmos alone. And maybe, Wu Jin thought as he watched a new group of species representatives prepare for their first contact with human ambassadors, maybe that wasn't such a terrible thing after all. The quarantine was over, the barriers were down, and for the first time in millions of years, the galaxy was learning what it meant to be truly connected. In the distance, Earth's sun continued to shine, warming a world where beings from across the galaxy lived and worked and dreamed together. The age of separation was ending. The age of unity had begun.